then was moved to NAV, which became Business Central, then Human Resources, the F&O platform, Dataverse platform for a while, and back to the agent foundations. Now we're working on enabling those agentic experiences for F&O. And so let's dive in and see what that looks like. So just starting out, I want to highlight the Copilot and Agent extensions is a core part of our agent story and AI story. And you've probably heard over the last few years that the agentic experiences, agents, copilots, AI in general is a strong part of our overall strategy. But we know that Microsoft is not going to be developing all of the agentic experiences that you need in your organizations. So we have to be able to develop an agent foundation that enables customers and partners to customize and extend those experiences and build your own custom agents that are needed for your organization. So we have these Dynamics 365 copilots and agents. These are the experiences that Microsoft is working on building and enabling for customers as out-of-box experiences. But the overall ecosystem is going to be largely dependent on customers and partners being able to build your own experiences and put those into a customer's environment to enable the experiences that are really needed for your processes. So these will focus on enriching your business data. So that your is the key word here. Your business data, your apps, your workflows, your automations. You're able to customize and extend these experiences to meet your needs. So you've probably seen something similar to this slide. We've changed the color scheme a little bit, but overall the overall messaging has been consistent over the last couple of years. That the core strategy for Dynamics 365 ERP is agentic experiences and building the agent foundation. So at the top here we have Copilot adaptive experiences, which are the interaction patterns for a human to interact with your agentic experiences. So we're evolving the user experience within the client to enable users to have those interactions both with a Copilot chat experience, but also working with those autonomous agents that are working on your behalf in the background, and what the interaction is there. So those experiences will continue to evolve over time as we have that adaptive experience for a human to interact with those agentic experiences. Below that, we have the ERP Agent Foundation. This is primarily powered by Copilot Studio as our primary agent foundation, which has the large language model driving that intelligent orchestration of the things that are happening within your organization. And we'll delve a little bit deeper into this layer over the next hour and look at what this looks like with the large language model driving those experiences. But at a high level, what we have here is large language models that understand language, understand reasoning, understand logic, and can look at the stochastic reasoning that has to happen across your business processes. And when it needs to, it's able to call into the deterministic business logic that sits in within our backend systems. And this is a really important component of this overall agentic ERP foundation, that we have AI that is able to do the good things that AI does really well with those large language models, but when it needs to, it is able to call into deterministic business logic in our business applications to perform operations. And this is one of the things that we often need to think about, is that large language models, a lot of times there's this misunderstanding that LLMs just understand everything and they can do everything because they've been trained on the entire internet. But we need to ground that in an understanding that large language models are trained on language and do things really well with language and reasoning over language and having that logic involved in those stochastic business processes. But they don't do calculations. They don't do business logic natively. They don't do calculations natively. And that's something that we, with the F&O business logic, we have literally over a billion lines of code in our F&O code base plus extensions across the globe that contain a lot of that deterministic business logic that defines things that must happen in a very specific and deterministic way because it's defined in law and it's defined in how those processes are run and operate. So as we have reasoning that happens that in our stochastic processes, when we do need to call into our backend systems to enable an agent to run those deterministic business processes, this is where we have our headless business services, what we call our agentic business services, that enable an agent to perform operations in our backend system. And this becomes a very core component of the overall strategy, enabling agents to perform operations in finance and operations apps as a human would perform those same operations. So overall, we're the key, one of the key messages to come out of this presentation today is that the overall agent ecosystem is expanding. That we have our first party.
Sorry. Sorry, I just have one question. You said you want the agents to interact with the F&O like the user does today. So this means the agents will continue to use the UI?
That's a great question. We will get into exactly that.
Okay.
In about 7 minutes, we'll get to demos that show exactly how that's going to work. Okay. Good question. So the first party experience, this is talking about the Microsoft agents. So we have Microsoft agents that are supplier communication agent, the account reconciliation agent, time and expense agent, and other agents that Microsoft is working on and releasing that will enable these agentic experiences. But this is not going to be all the experiences that a customer needs in your environment. Over time, as we expand those third-party agents, which would be partners building agents using Model Context Protocol, custom agents that are specific to an environment, this will continue to expand the ecosystem and enable additional experiences for customers. All right, so getting into a little bit of what Christian was asking, how are we going to do that? Model Context Protocol it's a relatively new protocol. It was developed by Anthropic. This is not a Microsoft standard, but it's rapidly being adopted by Microsoft and everyone in the industry as a standard protocol for enabling the communication between an agent platform and backend business systems. And so this is the core strategic direction that finance and operations apps is taking to enable Copilot Studio as an agent foundation and other agent platforms to communicate with the data and business logic of our business applications. It's an open protocol. It standardizes how applications with LLM applications communicate with our backend system. So it's often described as the USB-C of agent communication because it's that standard mechanism for taking an MCP server, attaching it to an agent, and that agent just knows how to communicate with it because it understands the protocol. At a high level, this is what that looks like from an architectural perspective. That we have in the agent, this is Copilot Studio. Actually, we just changed the logo. I need to change the logo on my slide. Copilot Studio did some rebranding over the last week. But this is Copilot Studio, where a lot of our agentic experiences are going to be built, where we have the agent. It's driven by a large language model. It has instructions given in natural language that give it direction on how it should reason, how it should use tool sets, things that it should think about as it's determining what it needs to do, and then a list of tools. And tools are essentially the things that it knows how to do. It's a list of capabilities that the agent is given that it's able to call at runtime to execute operations. With our MCP servers, that is when we have that agentic orchestration. Let's just say the canonical example that I typically use is calculating a customer balance. Calculation of a customer balance it's not a field in the database that we can just go get. It's a runtime calculation that runs in code to determine that customer balance and then becomes something that we can return back to an agent. So if that's something that an agent needs to know, we need a tool to do that calculation. And it can, at runtime, call into our backend system, run that code, get that balance, and return it back to our agent. So then it then has that information and can continue on with its agentic orchestration. Model context protocol is the mechanism that we use to broker that communication between the agent and the tools in the backend system that really simplifies the development experience for getting that information and extensibility of that experience overall, because it becomes then just a natural language communication where a human can type your intent in an agent or a chatbot or in the instructions of an agent using simply natural language. We can then execute that tool, call that operation, and return that response back without any code needed. Once the agent has that information, we can then continue on with that orchestration, have an output for that agent. So why model context protocol? Why are we working with MCP as our mechanism for doing this? It really dramatically streamlines the workflow of developing an agent. And overall, like that is the title of this session, Accelerating AI Agent Development. That's the intent of this. Now, with a model context protocol server, our development experience becomes simply attaching an MCP server to the agent, and then the agent then has all of the tools available in that server available to it, and you can start communicating with those tools in natural language. Becomes a very simplified experience for building that up. It also is a single standard protocol. So any agent platform that supports the protocol, which is becoming more and more of these agent platforms, you're not constrained to a single platform. If you want to expand beyond Copilot Studio, you can use GitHub Copilot, you can use OpenAI, you could use Claude. Any of the agent platforms that support Model Context Protocol then become an option for you for building an agent and communicating with the data and business logic of finance and operations apps. And reducing, no hard coding. You can build an agent without writing any code because it becomes a natural language experience. All right, one last slide before we jump into the demos. And this is a slide that I like to highlight because one of the challenges, and actually, Lone, you were mentioning this right before the call, right before we started, that we need to figure out what are the scenarios that we want to build with Model Context Protocol. And this is kind of a mind shift in how we think about ERP. That over the last 40, 50 years or so, ERP has been very deterministic. And as we develop ERP experiences, we develop what an ERP is going to do, we think about it in very deterministic terms. We think about it in terms of like running depreciation is very deterministic on a fixed asset. It has to happen the exact same way every single time. And so we write code that can be unit test to make sure that every single time it happens the exact same way, depending on the inputs. But as we shift into AI, we are able to automate a lot of processes that couldn't be automated before because large language models are really good at understanding stochastic reasoning. And so we can now automate things that couldn't be done before because we're taking in unstructured inputs. We're taking in language as the inputs. We're taking in descriptions and instructions as inputs that can then be translated into business processes and then call into deterministic business processes based on that stochastic reasoning. So as we think about the experiences that we want to build, it's good to note the strengths of a large language model, the things that they are really good at for us to be able to find quantifiable value in the AI experiences that we're building. So we don't want to build AI experiences just for the sake of building AI experiences. I think if you talk to customers, they strongly give you that same message. That's the message I'm hearing. We don't want AI just for the sake of AI. We want there to be quantifiable value in the AI experiences that we're building. And it's there. Just looking at the strengths of what large language models do, we can think through those scenarios and understand where we can insert AI into that to streamline business processes and reduce some of the drudgery of clicking experiences that humans have to do within the application. So the first one, automation. The things that large language models are really good at. The first one is automating processes. But within reason. It was one thing I want to call out is that when we're building AI experiences, we're not just trying to automate things that could also be done with a Power Automate flow or by writing a block of code. The intent is not to create a deterministic business process, then attach a large language model to it. Because we haven't really accomplished anything or really taken advantage of the things that large language models are really good at if it's something that we expect to happen the exact same way every single time, and we could just build an if-then-else statement that could do the same thing. What we want is to create these automations that also take advantage of these other strengths of large language models to automate things that couldn't be done before. So an example is language. Large language models, as implied by the name, large language model, are really good at understanding language. They're probabilistic models. What we do is we take a huge amount of text and context as input into the large language model, and it's trained on understanding all of that. So it brings in all of that context, then predicts the next output based on all of the things that it's been trained on, which for most of these is essentially the entire internet of language. So things like the supplier communication agent, that's one of Microsoft's agent, is a really good example of that. That we are taking in an email as input that before this, a human would have to read that email, understand the intent of the email, and then perform an operation. Now with large language models, we can receive an email, process that email using an LLM, that understands that language, determines the intent of the email, extracts objects from that email like product numbers, purchase order numbers, other identifiers from that, and then is able to invoke operations in our backend business system based on the intent of the email. So these are things that open up new opportunities for automation because LLMs understand language. Another one is unstructured data. I mean, this one is similar to understanding language, but it's different in that we are taking unstructured information like a PDF document of a resume or a product spec can be an input, or a sales order that's printed out on a PDF, purchase order from any of these documents that you would receive as a PDF either through an email or sent to you in some other way, that a large language model can look at that, process that information, take that unstructured data, turn it into structured data. It's something that you can then work with as data that can be inserted into the system or processed for additional operations in that agent. LLMs are really good at understanding that unstructured data and turning that into something that can be structured and worked with. And then the final one is reasoning. If you give an agent instructions, in a lot of ways, the types of instructions that we would give it, a lot of times we can think about it as giving instructions to a new employee in the company. Tell it how to think about the decisions that it needs to make. And LLMs are really good at reasoning over that information, the context that is given to it, the instructions that are given to it, and then determining outputs based on the instructions that they're given. So these are types of scenarios that we can think through to take advantage of the strengths of large language models and build out experiences using Model Context Protocol to perform some of these operations. So let's, oh, I was mistaken. I thought we were going to jump into demo, but a couple more slides here. Just to understand the how we built the Model Context Protocol server. The tools that are available in that MCP server determine what it knows how to do. Each of the tools in that server has a natural language description that tells the agent how to use that tool, when to use that tool, when it is needed within the context of that agentic orchestration. So right now, at Build 2025, back in May, we released a Model Context Protocol that had 13 static curated tools that performed 13 operations. So this is the list of tools which became the things that the agent knew how to do as soon as you attach that MCP server to an agent. They could find approved vendors, find requisitions, release purchase requisition lines, find inventory. You're probably noticing a theme with these that we released this list of tools that was for a very specific end-to-end business process of working with requisitions and working through purchase orders and items with that. So very, very specific process. So this is this was valuable as long as you only had one business process that you wanted to do with the MCP server. And we know that F&O does hundreds of thousands of things, and we needed to be able to expand beyond 13 specific tools. To do that, we raised the level of abstraction on our tool set. So the new server that we just announced 2 weeks ago, prior to Ignite, which was last week, our new evolution of the Model Context Protocol server that has a different set of tools that enables the user, and Christian, this goes to your question, it enables the agent to work with the application as a human would work with the application. So rather than giving it a specific set of tools like find inventory, we're telling it, when I give it the prompt, find inventory, what it will do is navigate through the application as a human would to find that information, with an exception. So when I say navigate through the application, we're probably thinking like computer use agent. If you used CUA, the CUA functionality on Copilot Studio, what it does is it literally opens up the application, opens a client session, takes a screenshot, processes that screenshot, determines the next step, and literally clicks through the application. What we've done to streamline this is we are not spinning up a client session. What we've done is opened up a set of server APIs that enable us to surface the view model of the application to the agent. So it's that same view model that would be rendered by a client, but rather than rendering it in a client, we give that to the agent as metadata. So it understands the context of the application, understands everything that is available for that agent to do within that context, and then perform the operation by calling these tools through a backend server API to perform that operation. So we're able to perform the same functions in the same way without the need of spinning up a client session and rendering the client for that agent to be able to see what options are available to it. The benefits that this surfaces, where this is hugely beneficial. One, well, there are three that I want to call out. The first one is this dramatically increases the number of operations that are available to that agent to perform. We go from 13 tools that were available in 2025 to over 500,000. Things that these we ran some code. We ran through the code to see how many things can we actually do in the base F&O client. Came out to about 650, but we put on a slide over 500,000 because that sounds more exciting. There's a lot of things that F&O can do, and we wanted to be able to open that up so that an agent can perform essentially anything, with some minor exceptions. Open up the agent to be able to perform anything that a human can do within the application. Other things that this opens up is extensions. That because we are taking that view model that is available to the agent based on the security role assigned to that agent identity and giving that back to the end user, or back to the agent, it will see anything that is available to it in that security context, including extensions, including customizations, including personalization. So automatically, any extensions that are available for that identity within the client environment are available for that agent to perform. So dramatically increasing the things that it can do, including all the extensions and customizations available to it. I mentioned this on the previous slide, but want to call it out again. Security is always a strong question for agents, and it comes up with customers. It's a concern that is regularly brought up before customers feel comfortable putting an agent into their environment. So I want to make sure that this is highlighted and brought up, that for Model Context Protocol Server, MCP as a protocol supports enterprise-grade authentication and authorization. It is there. We've implemented it in our agent experience, and it's also true on both ends of the interaction when we are working with the tool set. So when we first call the tool set, we return a view model to the view model to the agent, and it will only return the metadata of the things that agent has access to based on the security role, duties, privileges in the F&O environment that have been granted to that user. So it won't even see things that it doesn't have access to. On the other side, if it tries to then call in, even if it tries to call an operation or a menu item, display menu item, an action that it doesn't have access to, it will be rejected because it is still protected by F&O security, roles, duties, privileges. That security is always going to be there. It goes through full security reviews. All of this platform work goes through security reviews before being released, and we've ensured that the agents aren't able to perform things that aren't granted access to it based on those security roles. But also, this is, as a side note, this is also a good way to reduce the context window of the things that the agent can do. So if you assign admin role to an agent, it's going to get the view model of the entire application to it. So it's going to see thousands of menu items given to it. If you want to reduce that context, reduce token consumption, improve orchestration by giving it fewer things to think about and orchestrate over, then reduce the agent security that's granted to it so that the view model that's given to it has fewer menu items that it has to think about, fewer tokens to reason over that are consumed, and just reducing that context window that it needs to think about. So security, obviously important, but it also improves performance and quality of orchestration as a side effect of that. All right, let's jump into some demos. Actually, before we jump into demos, Christian, did that answer your question? Okay, yes, I got a thumb up. Perfect. All right, so I have a few demos that highlight what we can do with Model Context Protocol, but I'm actually going to start in the client with the sidecar chat panel as an example. And this highlights not only Model Context Protocol Server, so I'm straying, in my very first demo, I'm straying a little bit from the content of my presentation because I want to highlight a couple of things with the sidecar chat panel that are new. While also talking about Model Context Protocol. So in the sidecar chat panel, the Copilot experience in F&O, we all right, here we go. So the sidecar chat panel is a valuable tool for providing contextual, customizable experiences within the context of your client experience. As you're working in the client, you have this Copilot on the side that can give you guidance on the things that you can do and provide additional actions, custom actions that are available to the user within the flow of that of your work within the application. So an example here of a couple of new things that we've added here that are customizable, and I keep using that word intentionally because some of these are the actions that I'll be showing here are not out-of-box experiences. These are things that are one of the highlights of the sidecar chat panel is its extensibility, that you can, within your environment, add the capabilities and custom actions that are needed for you within your organization. So these are things that you can add, you can customize, you can extend to add capabilities like this that are important for you in your environment. The first new feature that we have here is this zero prompt experience. This is a customizable experience that lets you add zero prompts, which is a list of prompt options available to a user that can be clicked to give the user ideas of things of what they can do with those custom actions within the context of that form. So these are contextual within the understanding, within the form, within the selected document. The sidecar chat panel understands the context the user is in, including what form am I on, what document am I looking at, what are my language settings, and other contextual cues that are being sent to our agent so that you can use those within the actions that are available to you. So in this case, it knows that I'm on sales order 0061. If I were to click up here and refresh, it sees that I moved to 860. So it understands that context, and we can perform actions within the context of a selected record. So let's start by selecting create a new order. Let's say that I want to do that, and it populates the box down here with the prompt that I have selected. The next new feature for this sidecar that is enables customizable experiences, being able to attach records to the Copilot, bringing that into your Copilot session. So in this case, what I've done is I've asked it to convert this attachment into a new sales order. I've passed in a purchase order or an order from my customer, and I want to turn that into a sales order in my system. So what I've done is I've created a generative prompt in the Copilot Studio agent that takes that as an input, parses the information, pulls out the unstructured data, turns it into structured data, output as a JSON file, and then I just insert it into the table in finance and operations apps so that it becomes a new record within the system.
Jared, one question in between.
Sure.
I mean, what you are doing here now is exactly what the sales order agent is doing. So in general, my question is, the zero prompts, could they be implemented in a way that they are exactly doing simple things that specific agents that you are delivering as a first-party agent could do? I mean, this is exactly what a sales order agent is doing.
Yep. That's a good call out. So it's the sales order agent. It's a little bit different because the sales order agent is triggered by the receipt of an email.
Yeah.
It's a very similar scenario, and I have a couple of other scenarios that we could have done. This is just highlighting the ability to attach a record into the context of your chat session. So depending on how you have your processes set up within your organization, you might want to do it as a upload into the chat. It's a simplified experience to do it by email. This is just a way for me to highlight that we now support adding attachments into the sidecar chat panel. But that's a good call out. Okay. Another demo that I have set up, we could have done had I decided a different demo flow, is to take a resume as an input. And I take that resume and I turn it into a candidate record for a specific job. And then I have a generative action that compares the qualifications from that resume with the skill requirements and educational requirements of the job. And it tells me whether or not it meets the base requirements. So in a different demo flow, we could have done different scenarios, but it's highlighting that we can take any unstructured PDF or document or record or JPEG or whatever we want to input as an attachment into that client session, use an LLM to parse that information and turn that into structured data that can be then used as a generative action, comparing it to the data in our system. So good call out.
But this is exactly what I mean. So smaller tasks of agents, digital colleagues, could be in the future done by this zero things that you have on top. So you can. Beside, you have complex agents with complex tasks that you still want to build. You have maybe simple agents that can exactly be attached here in the sidecar.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Agreed. All right. So looking at this, the way I've added a URL here that we could navigate directly to it, but instead, just to show that I have it here now, I'm going to refresh, and then it shows my new record. It was created as I expected it to, and I can open this up and see the line items. We should see 2 line items on our new record. Yep, I have item number 4200, item number 1000, and the record was created as I expected it to. Refresh quickly. It gave me got the wrong actions there. So while this is connecting, the next step for this, one of the scenarios that can occur within while you're creating those new orders is in this scenario, they've ordered a bunch of printed circuit boards, but I don't have enough physical on-hand inventory to fulfill this order. And this customer, Cave Wholesales, is one of my high priority customers, and I want to make sure that I can fulfill this order. So when I look at the reservations, let's look at the inventory, let's look at reservations. I see that I have Oh, it looks like I purchased a bunch more. I ruined my own demo by purchasing too many items. So let's pretend that I don't have enough physical on-hand inventory to fulfill this order available for reservation. But let's find alternative reservations. So if I want to, if I didn't have enough on-hand inventory to fulfill this order, I would want to find other orders that have reserved inventory, so I can break those reservations and reserve those, re-reserve that physical inventory for this order that's a higher priority customer. So let's run this other prompt that is going to go find other orders for other customers that have this same item and return the information back to me that shows me I see a Contoso Retail San Diego is another one that has 450 reserved. And I can break that order because this is a lower priority customer. I want to break that reservation so that I can reserve it for this higher priority customer. So getting into my next action is to break a reservation. When I click that, it gives, I have an adaptive card, which is supported by our sidecar chat experience. You can add these adaptive cards that enable inputs. I want to break the reservation for part of the reservation on this sales order. And what this is doing is it is using an action that uses the Model Context Protocol server. And one of the challenges that I had when in this is that if you're familiar with this area, there isn't an entity available for us to just update the record on the back end. Model Context Protocol server, because it is opened up to work with the entire application, is able to take that item number, take the sales order number, my new quantity as inputs, and then run through a prompt that uses the Model Context Protocol server to perform this operation for me through a backend APIs. So I can free up inventory that will make it available for this order without having to leave the context of the thing that I'm working on. As typically the experience would be I'd have to navigate away from this or open another browser window, and I'd have to be clicking through the application to find where is my other inventory available, break that reservation, select them. It's a lot of clicks to go through that process. But in just a few clicks, I was able to find the available orders and then break a reservation on one of them that then makes it available for me to reserve those items. So we see that our physical reserved inventory is now dropped, and I have more inventory available to me, and I can then reserve the lot that then creates that reservation for this item, all without having to leave the context of the item that I'm working on. So the sidecar chat panel provides very good contextual custom actions available to you that enable you to work within the application without having to jump out and do other things. So there's one scenario. All right, so let's switch contexts a little bit. One of the things that I want to highlight is the interoperability of Model Context Protocol as a server, as a protocol. That our server is a remote MCP server that can be attached to any agent client. I want to step out of Copilot Studio for a minute and talk about it from the context of GitHub Copilot in Visual Studio Code. So we have a finance and operations or Dynamics 365 ERP MCP server. Another one that I didn't talk a lot about in the slides is our analytics MCP server. And actually, as I was going through the slides, I noticed I forgot to add it on the slides itself. This is one that we announced along with the ERP MCP server that enables you to perform operations using business performance analytics. So our BPA functionality has a lot of dimensional analytical models that work with your data. And this MCP server works with that data so that we can call operations, run reports, run those DAX queries that get the data back from those analytical models and give us information and perform operations for us. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to create a P&L report. I want it to have some charts. And I want it output as HTML so I can view it. in a browser. So note that for this agent, this is a chat agent, and when I'm running it in GitHub Copilot, I can see the reasoning that it's doing while it goes, and I can see the tools that it's calling along the way. So this one for our analytics MCP, it's going and getting the data schema, the reports that are available to me based on my security. We can see the context that is returned that the agent will reason over. And then it's going to run that DAX query based on the one that's selected, meeting the criteria of the prompt and the intent that I have in my prompt. And then it's going to create a report based on HTML. So we can watch it as it's writing line by line, the HTML that's going to be the output for this report. So another thing that large language models are really good at, they're really good at writing code. They understand lots of coding languages, including HTML. So this is one that if I want to output as a web page, it's going to give me this output that's available to me based on what I've asked it to return as my output. And we could have been much more specific. So I'm letting it make decisions on which charts are best for me, what color schemes are best for me. Those are all things that we could prompt the agent to do to get much more curated, specific results if there are things that we wanted. But these are things that I've left to the decision of the agent. We'll see what it comes up with.
Meanwhile, Joe, could I just ask you a question then?
Yeah. Well, can I have you hold off? It just finished.
Yeah, sure. No worries.
All right. So let's take a look at this, and then we'll open up for questions.
Yeah.
I do have a couple more demos, so we want to hold too many questions. So if I create this file, actually I have to save it before I can open it.
It's a yes and no answer.
Oh, perfect. So it'll be quick. Let me show this report first, and then we can go to the question. So this is the report that it generated. It made decisions on what data to show where. This is my P&L. It ran the DAX query based on my information in BPA, and formed this, giving me a line chart on my revenue and expense over time. I get my monthly net profit. I get my detailed P&L monthly based on what I had asked it to give me, and I have revenue by category. So these are the charts that it gave me, or it made the decision to give me based on the request that I made. If we wanted more detail or specific charts, specific graphs, specific information, we could have provided that as additional detail, but these are decisions that the agent made for me. Go ahead, Harold. Or sorry, who was it that asked the question?
That was me. Okay. Now it's two questions.
Oh, Lars. Sorry.
This MCP, is that in preview?
This one is not. So the BPA MCP server, and I have a link to all the detail at the end of the presentation, but the ERP MCP that works directly with the data and business logic of F&O is in public preview today. The BPA MCP server, or analytics MCP server, it will be in public preview in December.
Okay. Would both of them be available in the sidecar with the Copilot for the sidecar?
Great question. They will be over time. So what I have done on my sidecar example, and that's a good call out, that I didn't add the MCP server directly to the agent that is running that sidecar chat experience. I built a separate agent that is using a model that works better with Model Context Protocol servers, and then called that agent from a topic in my sidecar chat panel. Okay. So it called my sub agent, ran the operation, returned the response back to me in the sidecar, and then surfaced that in F&O. So it's very extensible, very customizable in how you can extend out to multiple agents from the sidecar. But for the time being, we don't support adding the MCP server directly to the sidecar chat. It was a call out to another agent that returned my response back to the sidecar chat agent. But over time, the intent is that we will support adding the MCP server directly to that chat experience. Okay. We just need additional validations on the performance and the quality of directly working with that chat experience.
Oh, good. Okay. I'll ask about cost later on.
Okay, Perfect. Severin?
Jeremy, just a quick addition, right? Because what you've just shown, getting agents, getting HTML files created, is great. But another thought we can take into account is, let the agent to generate Python scripts to create Excel spreadsheets, which has embedded kind of tables, tabs, and visuals which are changing when data is updating. And then finance teams loves Excel, and the Python into Excel is another great solution. And code interpreter in Copilot Studio, wherever you have, can execute Python scripts on the fly. So we can basically let agents drive small apps. We can execute in the runtime in the experience. So that gives us additional flexibility. But yeah, just sharing this one, it worked fine. And then I like to have your thoughts moving into what the finance accountants might do with this. So the next action is we are investigating over these results, and then we may need to post a journal. We may need to post an adjustment. We may need to investigate further, and then we go again with MCP on ERP to look into the details of the pattern we have found. And I think then the cycle is complete, that we are using MCP ERP analytics to find data, analyze data, make it visualize and to look nice, and then we have another one which is taking up on the result, and then the triggering actions to update main accounts, posting journals, or run depreciation runs, and whatever action is maybe needed on UI, which normally is then being triggered by a human, and here it's the agent who's doing that for us. So just a small addition. Trevor, please go ahead. I know there's more to cover.
Yeah, thank you, Severin. That's a good point. Definitely, LLMs are really good at writing Python and creating those apps that are there. And you called out insights to action as a pattern. And my next, the next the demo that is in the hole is, if you understand the baseball terminology, not the next one, but the following one highlights that we can take insights and information from the BPA MCP server, taking that information, then performing operations in F&O based on that information. So kind of an end-to-end scenario. So let's jump back to this. I want to do one quick demo that highlights, and so we can watch the reasoning of how the agent is going to work with the F&O MCP server, the Dynamics 365 ERP MCP server. So the simplicity of creating an agent. So in this case, what I have done is I've created just a base agent in a few clicks, adding tools, the Dynamics 365 ERP MCP server. It's a few clicks to add the server to the agent, and then it makes available to it all of these tools that we looked at of navigating through the application. It then understands how to work with the tool sets that are available to it. So in this case, we have added the server and given it some general instructions. And in this case, what I've done is we have some starter instructions that are published on our documentation that are just general reasoning rules on how to work with these with the tool set that's available in the ERP MCP server. It's published in our public docs. I just copied and pasted from there into this agent. Save, publish, and then you're off and running with an agent that understands how to work with the application based on the security that's granted to it. So in this case, I want to create a customer risk report. So my agent, that's it. Like that's all I did to create the agent, and then I'm just prompting it in natural language to perform an operation that I want it to perform. And we could publish this agent to Teams. We could publish it to Copilot for M365. We could publish it to a lot of different places that become a better end user experience. But in this case, I'm doing it directly in Copilot Studio so that we can watch the reasoning as it's happening and understand how the MCP server is working. That I've asked it to help me create a risk analysis for customer account US001. And we can see that it then jumps in and starts looking for the forms and data that will provide information for that. What is really kind of exciting about this demo is the understanding that there is no risk analysis object in finance and operations apps. So I've asked it to go create this report. This isn't using BPA Analytics MCP or anything. This is just going directly against the F&O data. And the model itself understands the general information that it would need to form a risk analysis report. So it forms that execution plan or orchestrates a plan, determines what type of data it needs, and then it's going to go into F&O to try to find that data. And it's going to try to find a customer balance. It's going to try to find aging information. It's going to try to find overdue balances, credit limits, that type of information that would be needed to determine risk for a specific customer. And we can see that it's opening menu items. If we select, we can see the types of places that it's looking for. It's going to the customer form. It's clicking through. It's selecting grids. It's finding information. And then we see the report that it prints out that shows me the type of information that it found that can give me that risk analysis. And this one completed quite a bit faster than I was expecting it to, but and actually this actually highlights one of the things that you'll want as you're building your own agents. You'll want to be more specific than that. Because I wasn't specific, I get different results every time. It finds slightly different information and gives slightly different recommendations every time. The last time I ran this, it found that all my aging information was way overdue because all my demo data is in 2017, and it highly recommended that I call a collections agency right away. In this case, it found a lower risk factor and risk contribution score. Actually, I would kind of feel the need to run this again. I'm going to run this in the background and we'll come back to it to see what different results we get while we move on to the next scenario. But the key here is understanding how to prompt. So in my demos, I don't do very detailed prompts. We're just trying to keep it simple. But as you are building your agents to get consistency from your responses, you'll want to be more specific in the prompts that you're giving it, so that it's looking for that information that you are specifically prompting it to get, and then we'll go find that detail and information that you need. The next scenario, while this is thinking, we'll come back to this and see if we get a better response from the next scenario, from this run. But one of the next scenarios that we'll look at is on purchase requisitions. And this is the last demo that we'll do. That highlights the capabilities of the MCP server. And I see we're at time, so I'm going to zip through this really quickly. This is what Severin was calling out, that we want an end-to-end scenario that can take insights and then perform actions in the system. So in this is a relatively simple agent that when I submit a requisition, a purchase requisition, this is somebody who needs to purchase items within the organization. They submit this requisition and someone needs to determine who is the right vendor to purchase that item. And that there's stochastic reasoning that needs to happen for that to determine the right vendor. It's not just looking at trade agreements and finding the lowest price. It's determining other things like the vendor performance. It's looking at things like on-time in full analyses, which can be done by the BPA MCP server and other information and cues to do some reasoning to say, depending on my context, I might need to have it delivered immediately. My delivery date and confidence in being delivered on my delivery date is more important than price for this scenario. And we can add that in workflow comments. Another key for this scenario is that we're adding a human in the loop, that we're taking advantage of F&O workflow, and I'm assigning an agent as a person where a human would have done been in the workflow previously. I've assigned an agent to do that work. So we're assigning a task in the F&O workflow process to an agent. It will be kicked off by that workflow event and triggering that event, perform the operations to do stochastic reasoning to determine what agent is being what vendor or supplier needs to be selected for that operation. It will then select and update the record using the MCP server, and then complete that operation to assign the task to a human approver. So let's look at what that looks like. Right now we have this requisition created. It doesn't have a vendor account selected. Let's jump to our agent. And in this case, we would typically trigger this autonomously. So it'd be running in the background automatically. But in this case, I'm going to trigger it in Copilot Studio manually based on the event that I submitted previously so that we can watch the reasoning as it's happening. Also note that I've added the email server for Outlook because I want this, I've instructed it in my instructions to send an email to the approver explaining the reasoning that it took to determine the supplier that it did. Because it's not an if then else statement, it's stochastic reasoning to understand which vendor is best for this context, select that vendor, update the vendor, and then assign that to a human to review the reasoning and select approve. So while this is running, let's, all right, so jumping back to this one, gave me some recommendations on things to consider based on the information that I found for my customer one. But I also want to look at, so this was a quick side trip out. Let's finish this scenario of looking at how we're triggering the operations for when the action is performed. I'm triggering it based on my workflow event. And let's look at the prompt that is run when that trigger happens. So and in this one, I've been a little bit more detailed in telling it what I want it to do. So first one, I want it to find the item ID from the payload. Based on that, I want it to find the release product details and find the trade agreements. Based on those trade agreements and the on-time info analysis from the BPA MCP server, these are just two pieces of context that I want it to consider for its stochastic reasoning. You could pull in quite a bit more information as instructions to tell it how to think about what it should be picking. And we can use words that say, if the difference in the amount is not significant. So we're asking it to reason. And so at runtime, it's going to do some quick calculations. It's going to determine whether, based on comments that are coming in from the workflow, I'm asking it to consider the comments that are added from the submitter, from the requester on that requisition. And in this case, the comment that I added is it's absolutely critical that these be delivered on time. So I want it to add greater weight in its stochastic reasoning to the on-time and full analysis. Then we tell it to look at the purchase requisitions and update it based on the supplier that it selected. And then I want it to send an email to me explaining the detail of that document and the reasoning that it took. So let's jump back to the requisition. We can watch it as it's clicking through the application. It's clicking, it's finding, it's getting the data. And in this case, I've used the model of the Sonnet 4.5 as the model, which is a reasoning model that shows us detail of how it's thinking as it works through this. And I've asked it to provide the information of reasoning after each step so that we can see what it's thinking about as it works through this. So we see that it's accepted the dialog close. It's saying, excellent, the warehouse was set to 11. So it looks like it's updated the document correctly as I expected it to. It's selected vendor 1001 as the vendor of choice with the unit price. And then it should then open the workflow actions, select complete, so that the action is then assigned to the next human in the workflow to perform a review of that operation. So bringing us all together, it's setting up a workflow, bringing an agent into an end-to-end workflow, enabling it to do stochastic reasoning, and then assigning operations back to a human so we have that human in the loop. And it's updating the comment. I asked it to update the comment field on that workflow in F&O and also send an email to me. So let's jump back and look at the record. It's about to click complete. All right, so it's about to send that email. So if I jump back here and refresh, we should see it's then updated the one based on what it selected. And then I, as the human, can review that operation. Let's jump back here. And actually, I'm not going to wait for Outlook to deliver the email that it just sent. This is the one that I did last Friday, and we can just look at the reasoning that it gave. that it gives me an analysis. It sends me the email. It shows me the options that it had based on my approved vendors. It gives me the decision reasoning on why it selected what it did. It looked at the price as I asked it to. It looked at on time and full, risk mitigation, total cost of ownership, did that analysis, did the reasoning, selected a conclusion, sends that to me. So the LLM, we took full advantage of the reasoning of that LLM within the context of an overall flow, and then performed that operation to send it back to a human in the loop. I, as the human, review that, I can see it, I approve of it, and then I have the action here to approve. And the operation is then complete. So we really have a lot of options here. The Model Context Protocol opens up options like this so that we can quickly create these agentic experiences that that open up basically the entire application. There are some exceptions that we have listed in our public docs that you can review. For example, we don't yet support output menu items, which are reports. We can't review those directly in the application yet. And there are a few others, but for the most part, we are opening up the entire application for an agent to work with, and opens up these types of scenarios. So I'm excited to see what you all come up with, and we are way over time. So Lone, I apologize. I understand if people have to drop, but one last slide. There is, if you want more information on this, aka.ms/ignite-mcp blog. This is the announcement that announces both the ERP MCP server, the analytics MCP server. You can get more detail there, and also documentation at Dynamics FNO Copilot _MCP for more information. So with that, I know I didn't leave time for questions. We did have a few throughout, but let's keep, I will follow up on the chat to see if there are any additional questions that we can follow up afterwards. So Lone, I apologize for going over, but turning it back to you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think you were the one who actually needed to leave early, not all of us who stayed in the call. But thank you.
I will need to apologize to the meeting afterwards, but yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for joining. And I think everyone got something out of this, so it was a great success. And we will upload the video on YouTube. And if you can share your slides with me, the ones that will be able to be shared, then we will also share them on the Meetup site. And for all of you who is still here, we have the next Meetup on the 18th of December, Christmas edition, wearing, of course, a Christmas sweater or something else Christmassy. Yes, thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much, Jared. Thank you, Launa and Jonas.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks all. Thank you.